Hello all. Today in this class we discuss about the next layer. That means in the last video we discuss about the details application about the physical layer, and now in this class we discuss about the layer 2 of OSI model. That means Open System Interconnection. The full name is ISO-OSI. ISO is a standardization and OSI is a model. We discuss the previous video. So now we discuss about the concept of data link layer. Okay, so this is the layer 2 of the ISO-OSI. So first of all, data link layer is responsible for moving frames from one hop, that means one node, to the next node. Okay, and there are so many responsibilities of the data link layer, which are first of all the concept of framing. So what is it? Framing is a very important concept. The data link layer divides the stream of bits received from the network layer into manageable data units called frames, first of all. Okay, next one is known as physical addressing. So in a physical addressing, if frames are to be distributed to different systems on the network, the data link layer adds a header. Header means it adds the header to the data with the data. So here if the data, and here the data link layer add the header to signify. So the data link layer adds a header to the frame to define the sender and receiver of the frame. And if the frame is intended for a system outside the sender's network, the receiver address is the address of the device that connects the network to the next one. So basically in a data link layer, the MAC address is provided, media access control. So the MAC is provided here. Next one is flow control. It is also responsible for the flow control. So the rate at which the data are sending by the or receiving by the receiver is less than the rate at which the data are produced in the sender. The data link layer imposes a flow control mechanism to avoid the say for collision of the data frames to the receiver, and it's also take action with the error control. Data link layer also performed for error control operation. So it is adding the mechanism to detect and retransmits the lost frames. Okay, and there are one more important known as access control, which is very important. Access control. So when two or more devices are connected to the same link, the data link layer protocols are necessary to determine which device has control over the link at any given time. Okay, so these are the very important features and performing action in data link layer. One thing should be remembered: in a data link layer, the MAC address is work, no IP address is assigned here. And the data link layer, that's why the frame concept is arises. In the next, we discuss about the difference between the packet and the frame. Okay, so now we discuss about the next layer known as the network layer, which is known as network layer 3 of the ISO-OSI model. So network layer first of all is responsible for to move the data packets from one source to another destination, and possibly across multiple networks or links. Okay, and network layer is basically work depending on the IP address between the two computers or two nodes. So network layer is responsible for the delivery of individual packets from the source node to the destination node. Okay, and in the network layer, it adds the header with the data or the packets to move the data traffic from one place to another place. So network layer, one main important thing in a network layer is first of all logical addressing. It's a very important. It's known as logical addressing. This is the first action taken by the network layer. So as we know that the physical addressing implemented by the data link layer, and if a packet passes the network boundary, then we need another addressing to help the distinguish the source and the destination node. So network layer adds a header to the packet and coming from the upper layer and include the logical addresses of the sender and the receiver. So that's why it recognizes where the data packet is sending from source to the corresponding destination. And one more important thing, work of the network layer is known as the routing. So routing is the most important thing. So basically, when there are inter networks or a large network or so many connecting devices called router or switches are connected to each other, then from sending the data packet from source to destination, say for example here one node A and here one node B, here one node C, okay, here one node D and here one node E. Now the data packets is they are assigned one IP address. Each node have their own IP address assigned. Now data package moves from B and then to E. It also goes to the C, D and E, but this is the shortest path. So this type of algorithm recognized by the network layer. Basically it is not a work by the network. This is not the function of the network layer. Basically in a network layer, the router is placed in a network. So router is an intelligent device which take a decision, and by its the sophisticated or intelligent algorithm in a router, so router can take the decision where the packet moves with a very short amount of time. Okay, so this is the importance of the router. So basically the router means the intelligent device, the device which can send the traffic using the shortest path algorithm. So this is the functionality of the router. So that's why router is an intelligent device in a networking. So that's why router is placed in a network is very important. Okay, so this is a function of the network layer. So network layer is basically works depend on the IP addresses, not MAC addresses. Okay, that's why their logical addressing is created. Now we discuss about transport layer. So this is a layer 4 of the ISO-OSI model. This is responsible from the process to process delivery of the entire message first of all, and there are so many responsibilities of the transport layer like a service point addressing. So first of all, the service point addressing. Okay, so this is the first function which is performed by the network layer, service point addressing. So that first of all, the concept of this that the transport layer header must therefore include a type of address called service point address, or known as a port address. In the later video we discuss about the concept of the port address. Basically in a transport layer, the port assigned by the port mapping is very important, because as you know that the network layer gets each packet to the correct computer. The transport layer gets the enter message to the correct process on that computer. So basically transport layer is the working function of the transport layer is basically to assign the port, the corresponding port. There are so many ports are available for the network connection. Okay, the next part we will discuss about the port. What is a port? So basically, service point addressing is a computer often run several program, okay, at the same time. So for this reason, source to destination delivery means delivery not only from one computer to the next, but also from a specific process, okay, on one computer to a specific process on the other computer. So that's why this is known as the service point addressing, the specific service point. There are so many service point and the individual port like a telnet, HTTP, FTP, and so many. There are lots of port assigned. In the later we'll be discuss about that. So next we discuss about segmentation, okay, and reassemble. So message is divided into transmittable segments with each segment containing the sequence number. So these numbers enable the transport layer to reassemble the message correctly upon arriving at the destination. Next, connection control. Next one is very important. Connection control is also the transport layer can either connectionless or connection oriented. So basically this connectionless or connection oriented is basically depend on the TCP and the UDP. There are two types of protocol assigned: transfer control protocol or user datagram protocol. So there are connectionless and connection oriented protocol. We'll discuss about in the next video what is a connectionless. And one thing should be remembered: a connectionless transport layer treats each segment as an independent packets and delivered to the transport layer at the destination machine. And a connection oriented transport layer makes the connection with the transport layer at the destination machine first before delivering the packet. So that's why it is known as connection oriented protocol. So before data packet sending, it first connection is established, and after all the data are transferred, the connection is terminated. So that's why it is important. Next one is flow control. Is no flow control. Okay. So like a data link layer, the EC is also responsible for the full flow control also, and also for the error control. Okay. And also like a data link layer, these also control the data link, the error. If there is some error, then it checks the error by CRC algorithm. In the next video we discuss thoroughly concept about the CRC. Okay, what is a CRC? Cyclic redundancy check. Okay. Now this is a working function of the transport layer in the ISO-OSI. So next layer, which is known as session layer. Okay. So this is a next layer, that means the layer number 5. Okay. Okay, first of all, session layer is responsible for dialog control and synchronization. Okay. So basically the thing is that the physical layer, data link layer and network layer are not sufficient for some processes. So in the session layer is the network dialog controller, and the dialog control. What is the meaning of dialog control? So the session layer allow two systems to enter into a dialogue. It allows the communication between two processes to take place in either half duplex or full duplex. And one more important thing is that synchronization. Synchronization factor. So session layer allows the process to add the checkpoints or synchronization points, the stream of data. So the synchronization is very important. Okay. So the synchronization of the frames are very important in a session layer. Okay. Okay, so now the in a session layer, one for a given example, so suppose this is an header H, and there is a synchronization process. There is a synchronization. So this is a synchronization time, and the information is coming from the presentation layer, that means the upper layer, and next go to the transport layer. So this is the working function of the session layer. Okay, so basically, for example, we draw this diagram. So for a consider, if a system sending a file of, consider something 1000 number of pages, and it is advisable to insert the checkpoint after every, say for if a system sending 3000 files, okay, and it is advisable to insert checkpoints after every, say, 500 pages, okay, to ensure that each 500 pages unit is received and acknowledged independently. So in this case, if any error is happened during the transmission of, say for example, 800 pages, the only pages that need to be resent after the system recovery are pages, say for 801 to 840. So the pages previous to 801 need not be resent. So in this figure we show that after sending the 500 pages, the synchronization process is starting. Okay, so that's why it's basically it checks the 500 pages is sending or not. So if there is any error, so the session layer again transmit the 500 pages to the next layer, that means the, yes, right, that means the transport layer, and it coming from the presentation layer. Okay, so say for consider we're sending first 500 pages, and then say for example 500 pages, first 500 page, and then 500, that means 1000 page, okay, 1000 number of page. And if there is any error occurs during the transmission of, say for example, 1024 number pages, 1024 page, okay, then the only pages that need to be resent after every system recovery are pages, that means 1001 to, yes, right, because here error is occurs, so pages previous to 1001 need not to be resent. So that's why here the synchronization is very important. So this is a function of the dialog control and the synchronization in session layer. So now we discuss about the working function of presentation layer. So this is very important. Presentation layer. Presentation layer basically responsible for translation, compression, and encryption. So translation means, first of all, write down translation. So what is a translation? The process in two systems are usually exchange information in the form of the character, string, number, and so on. Okay. And encryption means when we carry the sensitive information or very highly secret information, then we must include our privacy. So that is why data is encapsulated. And the next one is compression. So data compression reduced when if sending the audio file and video file. It uses the different types of compression algorithm in a presentation layer. Okay. And next one, the last. So presentation layer is basically the sixth layer, and last is known as application layer. which is the seventh layer. Basically, these application layer, presentation layer, and session layer, these three are basically happen in our web browser. Okay, and then session layer to transport layer, these are connected from computer to the server, and after get the first server to the next server, the network layer, data link layer, and the physical layer are responsible for data communications. So now, what is application layer? Application layer is a helps us to the user whether the human or software to access the network. Okay, so it provides the user interface and support for a service such as email, remote file access, file transfer mechanism, etc. So the application layer is responsible for providing the service to the user. Okay, so there are basically application layer is basically for the responsible for the number one, file transfer, access and management, mail services, directory services. There are so many services, network virtual terminal. Okay, and the network virtual terminal is a software version of the physical terminal, and it allows a user to log on to the remote host. For for example, AnyDesk software is an example for that, and also the team viewer. This kind of software we used to control the remote host computer also. So that's why this is application layer working function. So application layer is basically for the file transfer operation, access management, mail service and directory service, etc. Okay, so this is the we discuss how different layer works, but this is basically very preliminary video. We just talk about the basic scheme and the basic mechanism, but in-depth knowledge is very important, because in-depth knowledge, there are lots of hardware controlled. In the later video we discuss about that how different kind of software can manage in a web browser, like a PHP programming or ASP.NET or VB.NET or Java, jQuery language or JavaScript, how they can handle to in application layer, presentation layer and session layer, and the client and the server architecture, how the transport layer is taken action between the client server architecture. Okay, how they can manage the time or for the session out, login or logout system, and in a network layer, how router can be designed and to send the data traffic using various kind of routing algorithm, like a ad hoc on-demand distance vector routing protocol, or DSDV, destination sequence distance vector routing protocol, or OLSR, optimized link state routing protocol, or DMPR, disjoint multipath routing protocol. There are so many routing protocol available in today's technology. Okay, energy efficient routing algorithm. So there are very depth knowledge are in a computer networking. So this is just a theoretical concept, Okay, and in a data link layer, how the NIC card and the MAC addresses can assign the different types of the different IP MAC addresses, and why MAC address are not shared to another, and for a particular computer, the MAC address is common. MAC address is always fixed. So this is the concept of the layer of ISO-OSI model. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you.